Welcome to the Southwest Florida Realty Show with Billee Silva. And here's your host, Billee Silva.
Good morning. This is Billee Silva with the Southwest Florida Realty Show. And today we are going to discuss some of the recent changes in property and flood insurance. Whether you're purchasing a new home or thinking about changing your current insurance carrier and just shopping rates, understanding and navigating the insurance process can be overwhelming. I always try to get insurance quotes for my buyers, so I'm doing it pretty frequently, but it seems I consistently have questions. So I have invited a local insurance expert, Miss Monica Frier from Nash Insurance, to not only explain the process, but hopefully dispel some myths that I frequently hear from home buyers regarding insurance. Thank you so much for joining us today, Monica. First, can you tell us a little bit about Nash Insurance and how you got into the insurance business?
Hi, Billy. Happy Friday, and thank you for having me. I sure can. Yes, I'm a sales agent, a new business sales agent at Nash Insurance and Associates, located in Fort Myers. Brandon Nash is the owner. He's actually a third generation insurance agent here in Lee County. He started Nash Insurance and Associates back about 14 years ago. His father, Brad Nash, was an agent as well, and then he ended up joining Brandon at the agency about 3 years after Brandon started the agency. One thing that sets us apart from other agents or agencies is we have a service department that handles the calls and also endorsements. They're very knowledgeable. But we also have what's called a remarket department. And nobody likes to get increases on insurance. I know I don't for my home auto. So what our remarket department does is when they get your renewal, if there's been a significant increase in premium, they are on it. They are remarketing it to different carriers to get you the best rate. Sometimes where you are is the best place, and they can discuss that with you too. But we really try to make sure that you're getting the best rate possible, either on the new business side or also your renewal side as well. As far as myself, I have been in this industry a little over 20 years. I started working with a friend of mine that had an agency. I started off as a receptionist. Then I worked my way into getting my license and then my agent license. And then 20 years later, here we are. And I really do enjoy this industry. Some days are hectic, but I really, really enjoy working here at Nash and also the industry as well.
And I can tell that you enjoy the industry because you have such a passion and you're always so helpful. And I honestly, truly feel that you have the customer's best interest at heart whenever I call you. So that's you're my go-to girl.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you.
And, living in Southwest Florida, regardless of the flood zone designation, I always encourage my buyers to get flood insurance. But I don't know if our listeners are aware of the changes that went into effect regarding flood insurance as of October last year. Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little bit about that?
I sure can. Well, first of all, I like to say it would be very irresponsible for me as an agent to tell you that your property is not in a flood zone. We live in Florida. We are virtually surrounded by water. All of Florida is a flood zone. You just have certain areas that are lower risk and some are higher risk. Prior to October 1st of 2021, FEMA was rating as an area. But starting October 1st of 2021, they had a new rating change, how they were rating properties. And they started rating them from the individual property, not the area. I'll give you an example of my home. My home was built in 1956 and is very flat. The home next door to me is brand new and was very raised. So our premiums are going to be quite different because my home not being elevated and their home next door to me being very elevated. So that's what they started doing, was rating individual properties now, which have significantly impacted the rates. One thing I can tell you for your buyers, if they are looking at a property, I strongly encourage them to see if the seller has a current flood declaration on the property and if they can get a copy of it. What we do as agents, we are able to use that as, not to get too technical on it, but we're able to use it as a proof of prior coverage on that property to get them a much, hopefully a much lower rate. For an example, I just had a gentleman purchasing a property down in Naples, and he was not sure if the seller had the flood declaration. So I went ahead and quoted him without it, and his rate came in at 2,900. Honestly, is not a bad rate, but he was able to get a copy of the seller's declaration. I was able to use that as proof of prior, and his premium went from 2,900 down to $599. So
Wow.
I absolutely made his day that day. He was really happy. It doesn't always work out that way, but I strongly encourage that the buyer try and get that seller's declaration if they have it. If they don't have one, and sometimes people do not carry flood, they may not be required to by their mortgage company. It's strictly up to them. We can still quote it with FEMA, but if the rate is too high, we can also go to private market floods companies. Sometimes they're less in premium, sometimes they're not, but at least we have that option to do that. And also, sometimes the mortgage companies, from what I know, a lot of the mortgage companies are accepting the private market floods, but some of them are not. And I really feel that it's based on what type of loan you're getting. Some definitely require that it is backed by FEMA.
Very interesting and kind of scary.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
When I'm speaking with home buyers, I think there is often a misconception that flood coverage is also included in their homeowner's policy, because I can't tell you how often I hear comments like, I don't need flood insurance because I have hurricane insurance and
Mm-hmm.
cover any water damage I might get.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain the difference between the two? Because I know hurricane insurance is a foreign concept to a lot of folks who are
Right.
relocating to the area, especially from like the Midwest.
I sure can. Flood insurance is this. It is caused by rising water from the outside. If you're standing in your door, this is just a perfect example. If you're standing in your doorway and your street is flooding, and then now your driveway is flooding, and now your sidewalk is flooding, and now your feet are in water because it's coming toward your front door, that is rising water. That is where your flood policy would come in. Rising water from the outside. That is always a separate policy from your homeowners. Now, your homeowners policy for water damage, that is for your pipes. Yes, hurricane damage. And I really don't get too much into the claims part because that's not what we do. That's not our expertise. That is definitely an adjuster's job. So we don't get too much into that. But to the difference between the homeowners, which is for water damage, would be your pipes, toilets overflowing, that type of thing. Flood coverage is rising water from the outside. It could be from the street. It could be from, if you live on a lake, a pond, anything that's coming toward your house, from rising water toward your house, that would be where your flood would come in.
And I do think that's another misconception. People think that you have to live near water, near the river, on a
Mhm.
lake in order to get flood, but it can be rising water.
Well, I will tell you an example, and we've all learned this from Hurricane Irma. I live pretty much coastal, closer to the coast here in Fort Myers. And when Irma came through, I was in the red section. I was like in the flood section. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was prepared to watch my car go floating down the street. I mean, that's just something you mentally prepare for. Um, Lehigh, as you know, is the highest area, as I understand, in Lee County. So the thought of flooding out there was kind of unheard of. But the way Hurricane Irma came in to our area, I'm guessing the backside came in through Lehigh. They had major flooding out in Lehigh, which was just crazy. And so a lot of the people out there in Lehigh thinking they were safe. We are the highest point in Lee County. They were flooded, and a lot of those people did not have flood insurance. So I strongly encourage, as I said earlier, it'd be very irresponsible for me, to say that you're not in a flood zone. All of Florida is in a flood zone. And if I strongly encourage anybody to get a flood policy, because Mother Nature can be very unpredictable and we don't know what can happen. And a lot of people were flooded and they had no insurance to cover that. catastrophic disaster.
And if you're not in a designated flood zone, it's minimal. So it's just peace of mind. You'd be foolish not.
Yeah, it is peace of mind. I mean, the rating has, even for what they used to call X zones, the rating has changed, starting October 1st. The rates can be significantly lower, but you hit the nail on the head right there. It's peace of mind. And I can guarantee you, probably a lot of those people out in Lehigh now probably have flood insurance because of what they went through during Hurricane Irma.
I'm sure they do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a question I think I always ask you when I call you for a quote. When do you need a 4-point inspection and a wind mitigation report for insurance purposes?
Okay, very good. Yes, that is a big question. And I'm sorry if you just heard my email go off. I like to say, as far as a wind mitigation inspection, 2002 and newer, the homes typically get automatic credits because of the building code. So if you have a 1990 home, but you had a new roof in, 2019, we definitely want to see a wind mitigation inspection, because the wind mitigation inspection is optional, but it is what will give you credit toward the premium. So that's something that I encourage people to get. And when you call me for a quote, or you call your agent for a quote, they'll let you know when they will need the wind mitigation inspection. As far as the 4-point inspection, we have saved a lot of clients heartache, I will say, by requesting. What I like to do is getting a 4-point on a home that is at least 20 years and older. Some of the carriers require them at 30 or 40 years, but I like to see them at 20 years or older, because we want to make sure, when we're looking at this 4-point, and what a 4-point is, it is an inspection that touches on 4 points only, and that's the roof, the plumbing, AC and heating, and the electrical. And that's all an underwriter wants to see. If I sent them a 70-page inspection, which I'm not telling you not to get one, definitely get your home inspection, but an underwriter does not want to see 70 pages. They just want to see these 4 points. I can look at it, or any agent can look at it and say, okay, I see an issue here. This is going to be an issue with one of my carriers or all of my carriers. And this definitely you'd want to get fixed as soon as possible. So I like to see a 4-point on homes that are 20 years and older. Wind mitigation is subject. We just have to see how old the home is and when a new roof was put on.
Now, if it's a condo and the homeowners association covers the insurance on the exterior of the home or the building, do you still need it?
We don't necessarily need the 4-point inspection, but I will tell you this, we do need the wind mitigation inspection. The condo association will get the wind mitigation inspection to help on the premium for their master policies. And they also know that the unit owners can use that wind mitigation inspection to help them with credit on their HO6 policy for the condo, for the unit inside. So I definitely advise that they get that wind mitigation inspection from the condo association or the property management company. Here's a little kicker to it, though. 2012, the state of Florida changed the form. That was the last time they did that. So all of the wind mitigation inspections have to be on the new 2012 form. That's the ones that the carriers are accepting. Some of the condo associations still have the old 2007, 2010 form. And the reason they have that is because they haven't been made to get a new one yet. We can't make the condo associations do that. That's not a law. They don't have to do it. So in that case, sometimes the unit owner, if they want to get credit, may have to get their own wind mitigation inspection on their unit.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned something about HO6 insurance. I'm not sure our listeners know what that is.
Okay. An HO6 policy is for a condo unit owner. When you purchase a condo, typically, the condo association will insure the outer structure, the concrete outer shell structure, and the roof. The unit owner is responsible, and you have to really read your condo docs. We don't do that because they can be different. But an HO6 policy would cover the wall coverings in the interior of the unit. So sometimes people say, well, I'm paying $200,000 for the condo, and we may only insure the condo dwelling for 80,000. The reason for that is we're only insuring the interior of the condo, not the outer building as well. So that's the difference between, when a person buys a condo, they're wanting the HO6 unit owner's policy.
Gotcha. Now, lately, I've been experiencing difficulties with getting homes with older roofs insured.
Hmm.
It used to be if a shingle roof was nearing the 20-year age mark, 20 years seemed to be the magic number that
Right.
you might have trouble getting insurance.
Hmm.
Then we could then close, and the new buyers would have like 30 or 60 days to get a new roof put on. But that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. What has changed?
No, that's definitely not the case anymore. The carriers have really tightened their belts on the shingle roof and even the architectural shingle roof, which, as a rule of thumb, it used to be that the carriers would go up to 15 years on a composition shingle roof. That's your kind of lower end shingle roof. They would go up to 20 years on the architectural, which is a little bit better shingle roof. And then if you had a tile roof and a metal roof, you were pretty much golden. They would go up to 25, 30, 40 years on those types of roofs. Um, yes, things have changed. The carriers are now really tightening their belt on the shingle roofs, even architectural, where they're wanting them 10 years and newer. We do have very few carriers that will go up to 20 years still on a shingle roof. They've even tightened their belt on a tile roof where they're only maybe going 20 and 25 years. Metal roofs are still kind of golden in regards that they will go up maybe to the 30 to the 40 years on those. But yeah, they've really tightened their belts on the shingle and architectural shingle roofs. And I really feel bad when that happens because I don't know any, nobody wants to replace a roof at 10 years, but unfortunately, we do have to abide by the guidelines of the carriers. And if that's what they say, then that's what we have to go by.
And the days where they can wait after closing to get insurance for the new roof, is that's not in effect anymore?
It was never really a rule. It's really up to the carrier, and if you can talk to an underwriter, that's what we try to do. We definitely go to bat for our clients, and it's easier to get the 30-day extension for a new roof after closing if we're not in hurricane season. So sometimes if I go to, say, like right now in January, February, if I go to my underwriter and said they want to bind this policy, they are getting a new roof within 30 days. They have the contract with the roofer. They have a paid receipt. Is this something that you're willing to take a look at? And if I provide you with this documentation, will you give us a 30-day extension on the roof? And usually they'll look at it. It's not always 100%, but I've had them come back and say, yes, you can go ahead and bind the policy with the older roof with the understanding that we must receive documentation in 30 days that new roof has been placed on the home.
Okay. And another stumbling block I've been experiencing is the age of the water heater.
Oh, yes.
Is a buyer going to have difficulty getting insurance if the water heater is old? And what's the magic cutoff age?
The water heaters, it's been crazy because it's something that's been new the past 2 to 3 years. Um, and they want to, majority, one of my carriers for particularly, yes, they want the water heater 14 years and newer. And I pretty much say that across the board with all of my carriers. 14 years and newer is the magic number. They've experienced water losses with the water heaters leaking in the middle of the night. Most of them, yes, are in the garage, but for them to say, well, who's in the garage, who's not, who's in the bathroom, in a closet in the bathroom, they can't, differentiate that all the time. So they just had to put one golden rule out there. So it's 14 years and newer. What'll happen usually is when I try to quote a policy, I do ask, that's one of the questions I do ask, do you know how old the water heater is? Some will say, well, yeah, it was just replaced 2 years ago. Great. If some say, well, it's probably 14, 15 years old, I let the client know. I will indicate that it's 14 years old, but when the carrier does the inspection and they find that it's either that age or older, they're going to let us agents know. And what they'll do is usually first they will request that the water heater is replaced. And then we have a certain amount of time to send in that documentation that the water heater has been replaced. If it's not replaced in the time frame that the carrier has given us, they will cancel the policy. They will set it up for cancellation. So I always, that is one of the main questions. It seems random out there when I ask a client, so what age is the water heater? And they're probably thinking, wow, that's random. But that's the reason we do ask that, because it can cancel a policy if it's older and not replaced.
Wow, so that's pretty serious.
It is serious, yeah. Yes.
Nothing to mess around with, because I know I've had clients say, "Oh, well, we'll just tell them that it's new." I'm like, "Well, no,
Yeah, and that's and
20-year-old water heater, you're bound to get caught."
well, the carriers now, I mean, some of them, what they've gotten smart with now is some of them will ask for the 4-point. So we actually send in the 4-point. And one thing I want to mention about a 4-point, if a carrier does not do their own inspection, but they do ask for a 4-point inspection, that 4-point inspection has to be a year old or less. It cannot be a 3-year-old 4-point inspection. That's one thing I wanted to make known, and it just popped in my head. It has to be at least a year or less old, the 4-point inspection. So either they're going to ask for the 4-point inspection and they're going to see it on there, how old the water heater is. Or, like I said, some of our carriers, they may not ask for the 4-point inspection. They'll go and do their own 4-point inspection. They will actually make an appointment with the client to go out to the home to do that. So that, again, is why I like, I can't speak for all agents out there, but for myself, I like to ask for the 4-point inspection on homes 20 years and older, so I can see what's going on and hopefully ward off any problems, after we bind the policy.
Good to know. Good to know. As a realtor, we always hold our breath when we discover a Challenger or Federal Pacific electrical panel or polybutylene plumbing, because we know it's going to be difficult for our buyers to get property insurance.
Right.
We often hear from sellers, "I've lived in this house for 30 years and never had any issues. I have insurance. I'm not fixing it." You know how sellers.
Yeah.
What does it mean to a buyer who's looking to purchase a home with a Challenger or Federal Pacific panel or maybe polybutylene plumbing? Is it, again, like the water heater in the roof?
Well, it's actually much more than that. It is and it's not. In some cases, I have carriers that won't even quote it or even let us bind it if it has. The 4 that we have on the list are Challenger, and this is for the electric panel boxes. Challenger, Federal Pacific, Zinsco, and that's Zinsco, and Sylvania. Those are the 4 major ones that I know that our carriers will not accept. And sometimes, like I said, they will not even quote or write a policy with those. If it slides by and, say we have a home that is 5 years old. Well, I'm certainly not asking for a 4-point on a 5-year-old home. If for whatever reason this 5-year-old house has a Challenger Fed Pacific and it slid by because, we didn't know, when the carrier goes out to the inspection, they will then at that point say, this is an unacceptable panel box. It needs to be replaced right away or we'll cancel the policy. So that's, again, if we definitely try and see, what it has. If we see square D, that's like winning the lotto. The square D is like the one that you want to have, apparently. So it's like square D, we're good. As far as the plumbing, yes, the cast iron, polybutylene is a no-no. I think I have one carrier, maybe 2, that'll take polybutylene, but that's very few and far between. And what the deal is with the polybutylene is, I guess back in the 70s, 80s, and even 90s, it was used. It was inexpensive, so it kept costs down, and it lasted for a while, and then it started to leak. And one of the major, aside from a catastrophe like a hurricane or tornado or anything like that, one of the major losses that can get very expensive real quick is a water damage claim. Because it's so much more than just water damage. It's water damage to the flooring, the cabinets, carpet, drywall. And then, of course, we all know that what happens when drywall gets wet is mold sets in. So that's why they've had to put the kibosh on the polybutylene, some PEX plumbing, cast iron, and there's also some pipes that are flex. And I wasn't really sure what that was until I delved more into it, and I've seen it underneath sinks. It looks like a flexible plastic pipe. And while it looks okay, you know how flex can be. It can, flex, and then you get that wear hole in it, and then now we have a water leak. So those are some things that the carriers will not accept on the plumbing.
Wow. Okay, last question. And I have found that buyers typically think they need to insure their home for the purchase price or market value. And you kind of talked a little bit about that with the condos. But can you explain the difference between insuring your home for its replacement cost versus market value?
Yes. That's a very good question, actually. Replacement cost is what it would cost to replace the home in today's market. Most of our carriers have what's called a replacement cost estimator. And so we plug it in, and it kind of calculates it on the back end. It knows the area, it knows the construction type, masonry versus frame. Square footage is a big factor. So there's a lot of factors that go into getting that replacement cost. So you may be paying, let's just say, $600,000 for the home. You may be paying that as a market value, but we may be only insuring the home for $450,000 or $500,000. And the reason for that is you are also paying in that $600,000. You're paying for location, and you're paying for the property. We don't insure the property, the actual land. The land's not going to go anywhere, hopefully. So we are not insuring the land. We're insuring the structure of the home. So that's where you sometimes see the difference between what a client is paying for the property, the home, and what we're insuring it for.
Oh my gosh, Monica, I cannot thank you enough for taking time out of your busy morning to share your wealth of knowledge.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm happy to do it. And
I really
time.
I really appreciate it. How can our listeners get in touch with you if they're looking to maybe change insurance carriers or shopping rates?
Well, I am at Nash Insurance and Associates, and they can, our address is 8801 College Parkway, Suite 5 in Fort Myers. My direct number, you can call me directly, is 239-690-4840. And my email address is my first name, Monica, Monica, at nashfl.com. That's NA, S as in Sam, H, F like Frank, L like Larry.com.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you, friends, for listening today. Remember to share my podcast with your family and friends. I'd love to hear what topics you'd like to hear more about or guests you would like to have appear on the show. So please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Until next time, stay well and make it a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Southwest Florida Realty Show with Billee Silva. To learn more about Billee Silva, go to www.sw-floridarealtor.com. That's www.sw-floridarealtor.com or call 239-247-2490.